AMD CEO Dirk Meyer has answers. It's where you want to be after work. Fox Business Happy Hour.
House Democrats agreeing to narrow legislation giving bankruptcy judges the power to force lenders to rewrite mortgages for struggling homeowners. Joining us to talk a little bit about this, the other housing plans as well, Charles Payne, and the president of Tuttle Wealth Management, Matt Tuttle. So, Charles, it's the first time we saw you this morning, so let's start off with you first. About this housing market plan, the idea of cram downs, just overall, what's your reaction?
It's mixed. I'm not too happy with it, particularly with the banks teetering the way that they are.
Do you think that needs to be fixed first before we do housing legislation? I mean, which comes
Well,
first?
essentially what we're going to do is the bankruptcy judge will have the power to say, okay, you know what, your mortgage is $300,000, but the house is worth $200,000. Let's push down the mortgage to $200,000 and match the house, and the bank could eat the rest. That's one way it could be formed. Now, there's a group of Democrats. The reason this hasn't gone through, and it was supposed to go through a month ago, the New Democrat Coalition, which is 58 Democrats, who actually are opposed to some of the more draconian measures. So we'll see exactly how it comes out. But I think anything that hurts the banks while we're trying to put them through this so-called stress test seems a little weird to me.
Like a mixed message. And
exactly.
And Matt, at the cover of the New York Times, at least at the NewYorkTimes.com this morning, there was an article about Countrywide, the number 2 guy in Countrywide, Stanford Kurland, now developing another fund, going in and offering refinancing to homeowners. Some of them saying they're getting the best deal they could from this gentleman. Again, he's the number 2 guy, D'Angelo Mazzillo. So there is the private market, as we've seen from Citigroup and their mortgage modification plan, seems to be also working. Do you think that we need, which do we need to have happen? I mean, do we encourage the private sector here with tax cuts and things like that? Do we need the government to be involved? I mean, how much do you think, if you had to divide the two?
Yeah, I mean, I would like it to be as much as possible the private sector. I mean, what the former guys from Countrywide are doing, that's working. Going in, buying the loans from the banks that are distressed, and then being able to rework those mortgages because they're buying the loans at pennies on the dollar. I think that makes a lot more sense than getting the government involved.
But the criticism is, Charles, is that these are the former guys from Countrywide.
Yeah.
And that they were somehow involved in this whole type of overlending environment. A lot of them have lawsuits against them because they were involved with Countrywide.
You know what, though, Jenna? We look in the rearview mirror. We don't see back too far. When Mazzillo started the company in 1969, it was a one-man shop, just him. Over the years, they did provide millions of people with homes, hundreds of thousands of people with employment. Those people put their kids through college. Yeah, he got greedy and they lost track of everything. But, there were some good things out of this, from the very beginning. There are millions of people who live in their homes because of Countrywide. So, I try to look at both sides of the equation. Listen, they have a right to go in there as business people, and they're taking a chance. They're doing something other people aren't doing.
Do you think there's still greed in this market right now?
Well, there's always greed in the market.
Where is it right now?
Well, I think right now, ironically, I think there's a lot of people sitting on money, hoping it goes lower. That's a perverse type of greed, that they can't wait for it to get even cheaper, if you will. But greed is a motivator.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, since we don't see a whole lot of buying, kind of where the shoppers are.
They're lurking in the dark.
Oh, God. Don't go back to some green aliens from yesterday, Charles. I mean, really. Anyways, you have to be there. He was on set talking about green aliens. Matt, thank you, Charles. And Ashley, I won't bring you back there to the aliens again, but back to the markets.
It's too late. You already have. The seductive green alien lady. Well, I'll tell you what, lots of green on the board today, guys. Let's take a look at the latest boards for you. The markets today performing a whole lot better than they have been for the certainly Monday and Tuesday of this week, spurred on by certainly some news out of China, speculation out of China that a stimulus package is in the pipeline. Here's what we see. We're up still close to 2% in London on the FTSE 100, still above 2% on the plus side on the CAC 40 in Paris, and as you can see, up about 3% on the DAX index in Germany. We are a little bit off of our session highs, but we've managed to maintain this now for some 3.5 hours since the markets opened. So all in all, a much more positive day.
It is certainly a much more positive day, Ashley, than it's been, that's for sure. Maybe that Chinese news and the Asian market reaction to it and what's happening there in Europe is helping our futures as well, because we're up somewhere between 1.5% and 2% there across the board, 114 points Dow futures.
And a quick look at commodities right now as we're checking in on oil. Oil, again, up about 4%. We're seeing more declines in the gold market. down just slightly this morning, about $3. Well, in the lead this half hour, President Obama doing his very